Well, ho, 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 and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you live every Thursday night. So hello, Facebook land, YouTube land. Chats are always fun. Good seeing you there. And remember, your chats just might show up on the show. So keep it tame, keep it tame. And as always, if you can't catch us live, catch the replay or listen to us in your favorite podcasting app. My name is still John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957. And next up, Jason Richards. How's it going, Jason? Caught you off guard.
It's going great, John. How are you?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Jason Richards here, just sending something via airdrop so that I can share it on the show later. Past Master of Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C., and Lafayette Lodge number 79 in the Grand Lodge of Ohio, or under the Grand Lodge of Ohio. Glad to be here.
AF and AM? FAM? You have to use the full title.
No.
While you think about that, airdrop that answer over to yourself. Next up, Joe Martinez. How's it going?
Hello, Joe Martinez. I am and still Joe Martinez. And let's see. Past master.
Woo!
Manassas Lodge number 182 in Manassas, Virginia. We'll do the Jason thing. Let's see. A member of Benjamin B. French Lodge number 15 in the District of Columbia. And Ezekiel Bates Lodge, no number, in the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. Harmon Lodge number 420 in North Carolina. And a bunch of other places too. And as always, damn glad to be here.
Yay!
Yay.
Awesome. Robert's on his way. He had to fit into his Santa suit, so that takes time.
Gotta get the butter
Does
out.
take time. Yes. All right, gotta squeeze on in.
Nice.
Let's see. Want to give a special shout out to the patrons who support the show. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. You're awesome.
Yes. Every day, you're awesome.
You are.
Even on Saturdays.
Twice on Sundays.
And twice on Sundays.
How awesome you are.
So if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable and make it a New Year's resolution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, might as well start now.
Boom.
Might as well start now. Can we talk about the TMR 4th annual Secret Santa?
Yes, that
gift
was
exchange?
fantastic.
That was absolutely amazing. We had 35 participants, hopefully most all of whom have gotten some sort of gift from a secret TMR fan.
right.
So, Joe, what'd you end up getting?
Yeah. So
It's a secret.
so we were talking about this.
You wouldn't call it a Secret Santa
So,
if you told
whoever
everybody.
my Secret Santa was, I got the message that your gift shipped, and I am super grateful. The problem is that there are a ton of Amazon boxes that all say Joe Martinez upstairs that have not been opened. And for those over 13, you know why. So I will get to them between now and Monday, I promise. And next week we'll talk about the lovely gifts, because I still have last week
Ditto.
on my desk. Yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it. And I know my pick got his gift, and hope he liked it.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Yeah, I received a really cool copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Like full,
But you're not
like
Egyptian.
huge, like 11 by 17 spread with like gorgeous scans of the most complete like papyrus that we have. Oh, and Jose got the Surrealist Tarot. Interestingly enough, the Surrealist Tarot was the gift I got last year
Nice.
from Brother Jose, I believe.
Nice.
So
It's the gift
yeah.
that keeps on giving.
yes, I
Gifted
did not
forward.
re-gift it to him. I
No, you
have
didn't
it
do
up on my
That's
wall.
what they all say.
Yeah.
Prove it. Okay, so good times. You know what? We might even do this again next year.
Maybe.
All right, let's do that.
But, yes.
Patron, Secret Santa. All right, I think we are now up to that special time of year
Special time.
and of every show where we play the tarot card of the week. Jason, play us in.
Tarot card of the week.
Never gets old.
Wow.
Never
Oh,
ever gets
Oh,
old.
but it does. It does.
Except the Joe. Getting into the divinatory aspect of tonight's show. Thank you for pointing that out, Nanya. I will ban you if you continue. We've got the Yuletide Tarot. I'm just kidding. It's not very Christmassy to ban.
It's
The
not.
Yuletide Tarot.
The Yuletide Tarot. Yes,
Nice.
we pulled this out a couple episodes ago, and so really great, really interesting, Yule / Saturnalia themed deck, and we may see one or two cards pop up later in tonight's show, but for now, for now we have the Five of Cups, or the Five of Good
Aw.
Cheer. That's not a great one.
Well, I mean, we're at the end of the year, so
Yeah.
people are reminiscing. So maybe
Reflecting.
they're reminiscing a little too hard.
Mhm.
Well,
And
or
we learn to let
reminiscing or focusing on like the wrong things.
Focusing
Right.
on, I love the way you said that, right? Because in the Rider-Waite system, 3 are broken, but 2 still stand, and yet we're focusing on the negative without appreciating the positive that still exists. So,
Right.
Yeah, it's
we
not
should
like
keep
it's
that in
the Ten
mind.
of Swords.
No, that would suck. But yeah, so that's it's a cool card. Again, it's a good one for reflection end of the year.
But get over it quick and
Suck
move
it
on
up.
to new crap, basically, is what we're telling you.
Yep. Don't overwhelmingly focus on the things you haven't been able to achieve this year.
Which I think is actually a really cool point from just tarot cards in general, right? That there is both a positive and negative aspect to it.
Yeah.
So even the positive cards can have like, if you're too positive, if you're too optimistic about something, you could be, you could be off balance, and you could be not taking care of something that you need to, right? So that's
And we
just
all know
yet
that one
a good
person.
example.
Like you ever see that person at work that's like way too
Way too bubbly, yeah.
and you just want them to leave? Yeah.
It's not Joe Martinez.
Yeah, it is definitely not Joe Martinez. Come like 4:30, I'm not the bubbly bottle of champagne that everybody else is.
You're not the bubbly bottle of SodaStream.
Not a sponsor,
Not a sponsor.
but damn delicious.
This is nice. It's a nice show we had last
Soda Stream, where are you?
Gosh.
Send us stuff.
So I like that tarot deck, Jason. So do we have an appropriate Santa Claus theme card in this Yuletide tarot?
We do, actually. So the Hierophant is actually Santa Claus. And
That.
for Benjamin Rosenberger, yes, this is the exact Yuletide tarot from Christopher Hughes and Aaron O'Leary Brown.
Nice.
It's just an amazing set.
So there's a red and white Santa Claus.
Yep.
The 5th card on the Major Arcana.
Yeah, and of course, Santa Claus and the Hierophant being mystical, religious figures with spiritual overtones, and trying to take care of your spirituality first and foremost, right?
Yep. Spiritual institutions. Yes.
Yep.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing.
No problem.
All right.
I was
Let's.
just
segue
looking
into
at that.
Joe.
He doesn't look uber Greek and tan in that picture.
He doesn't have the huge forehead.
Well, given Santa Claus is Germanic,
Yes.
Yeah, but St. Nicholas was.
Not Saint Nicholas. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
well,
That's a good segue because
Let's do it.
Santa Claus is many things to many people, and depending on your tradition, it's the right one, but for everyone else's, it's wrong.
In some jurisdictions, he's a Mason, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, so first off, it's the solstice today. So it's the darkest
Yes.
Ooh, in
day of the
40
year.
minutes, 40 minutes, baby.
But who's counting?
Death
am.
of
I
the
am.
sun, and we
Yeah.
eagerly await its rebirth come tomorrow morning.
Yep. Happy winter solstice in
Yeah.
45 minutes.
So yeah, what I love about this is good timing for the show, but also why do we celebrate the solstice? You know, one thing that I like to reflect upon on this time of year is, and you'll see a lot of these themes if you try to do some research about like what does the solstice mean? Like why do people celebrate it? And like in astrology, when you're like studying like the phases of the moon, for example, like you think like full moons are things to be celebrated, but in fact, full moons are like the beginning of death. Like it's the beginning of the decline. It can't get any bigger,
Right.
and it's only, going to shrink and wane down. And so, really, you should celebrate
The
new
new moon.
beginnings on the new moon. Exactly, where you can't see the moon. It's getting ready to begin. It's getting ready to grow, and the same is true for the solstice, right? Where here we appreciate the harvest, right? We've celebrated where we are and where we are today, and know that it's only going to get lighter after today.
Doesn't mean necessarily easier though, because the
You're a five of cups kind of person, aren't you?
You are. You're
totally
you're five
well
hard.
when you look at the pagan roots of Yule and the celebration of the winter solstice, a lot of this was preparation for the lean years in the agrarian society. So they had the harvest.
Mm-hmm.
They had a big celebration because of their bountiful harvest, but they also ate up all the food that they couldn't store and slaughtered the animals they wouldn't be able to feed during January and February, which were the lean months agriculturally. And so it was both a celebration, but then also, a preparation and or initiation into the next cycle of their society. And so, yes, it was a celebration, but it was also preparation for, the hardship that they knew was going to be coming.
Definitely five of cups. Definitely.
But yeah, well, to that point, I mean, it really was. And, over the centuries, we've covered it with gift giving, and we've started to merge traditions together as people become more homogenous, right? But, for thousands of years and across different cultures, that didn't talk to each other, this was a celebration of death, right? Of the end of the cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's okay to celebrate that. So I think that kind of dovetails nicely into all the things that came later, right? And then ended up with Hallmark movies and things like that,
True.
Yes.
Well, and
Awesome.
the 12 days of Christmas originating from the Yule log. And
What?
so they cut down a big Yule log and lit it ablaze. And traditionally, it was said to burn for 12 days.
8
Nice.
crazy nights. I mean, 12. That's a different. Okay.
It was like 2 weeks ago.
Candles versus evergreen tree.
Okay. All right. Close, but no cigar.
Well, good segue to our Jewish brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Happy belated Hanukkah. It came early
Indeed.
this year. So yeah, you guys partied already. So much rejoicing.
Indeed.
Your gifts were awesome. Yeah.
One thing that I know we're going to get to Santa Claus in a moment, but one thing
it's winter themed.
that I found particularly interesting in some of my research is that there was a kind of theory that in certain times of the year, the barrier between spiritual and earthly is thinner than others. Halloween being a noted example of that idea that you dress up to ward off any of the spirits that have crept through, but also there's a bit of an inverse property between spiritual energy and physical energy. And so at the winter solstice, the sun's physical energy is at its minimum, and the resulting spiritual energy associated with with that time of year is at its maximum, and then it's flipped in the summer solstice.
You're a lot more reflective when it's cold. That's what I'm hearing.
Fair.
You're like, oh gosh, am I gonna make it through this?
Well, nowadays we just get a whoopee and a blanket.
That's
We're
true.
good.
True.
This is an interesting one. So Nunya says, according to Albert Pike, the Philosopher's Stone is red and white. According to other sources, it's not. Of course, the Philosopher's Stone is supposed to represent a certain someone. Now, let's just talk at a macro level about the phases of alchemy, which in the primary phases, right, you have four stages, but like you at least will pass through white, black, and red. So you got Santa Claus colors right there anyway, which is kind of cool.
Boom. He was a alchemist.
Indeed.
Yes, and the physical versus spiritual energy piece was taken from Max Heindel's A Mystical Interpretation of Christmas, for those who want to research that more.
And RJ loves his Max Heindel.
Oh, he does.
Not here yet. Still fitting into the Santa suit.
Oh, no. Ran out of Vaseline. He had to go get more.
Get the
Crisco.
Man, I haven't seen Crisco in a while.
Oh, we just had to buy something. My mom is Criscoing like everything that my mom's here for the holidays, and everything she makes has Crisco in it. So we're gonna be good
lard
for this solstice. See, we're gonna be chubbied up and warm. Okay.
Nice.
Yes.
So yeah, so as you can tell, this is going to be a potpourri of esoterically related holiday things. So while we will talk about Santa Claus, I mean, it's really good to pull in these different traditions, because the Christmas we celebrate today is really an amalgamation, of a lot of different traditions.
Smorgasbord.
It's a smorgasbord.
No, it's a birthday party.
It's like pagan
party.
and like
it's a birthday party.
I mean, it's a birthday party for the sun deity, so yeah.
So
totally
fun fact: where did December 25th as the birth of Christ come from? Do you know without looking at my notes?
I never read your notes, so I can.
Yes, that's true.
I have looked at your notes. However, I do have an alternate hypothesis from Charles Leadbeater.
Okay,
but go ahead.
Well, he's wrong. So the early church fathers,
you're a terrible person,
selected December 25th only because, hey RJ, it was tradition for saints that their birthday, if they didn't know it, was actually assigned to, the date they were conceived was assigned to the date they were executed or martyred. So they assigned the crucifixion to March 25th. And therefore they said, well, if that was the date Jesus conceived, 9 months later would be December 25th. So it just happens to align to Saturnalia and all these other winter solstice activities. And so this is
a very
coincidental.
Chicken or egg thing. Like what was like Christianized first, the spring festival or like the winter solstice?
Well, no, that's a fantastic question. I mean, they have date. You can date some of this stuff. So if we're going to talk about December 25th itself, if we're going to talk about December 25th, it does show up in the 4th century in Christian writings, I think around the 330s. And you're exactly right. What John said, even though I didn't read his notes, it is 9 months after March 25th. But if you look at primary sources, if you look at the Gospels and 1st century Christian writings, you can already tell there's conflicting information. It says this probably didn't happen in December, but nobody knows for sure. But so December 25th did start showing up as a birthday party around the 330s for the JC.
For the JC.
Christos.
It was also
it's just convenience.
And that's what Leadbeater was getting at.
Say more.
It's like, it was probably selected fairly early on in ecclesiastical history because it coincided with the Great Sun Festival, and it was naturally convenient to take advantage of what was already a public holiday.
Yep. And history tends to agree with that. I mean, even though I hate Meat Beater, look, he's not far off in being wrong in that. I mean, we're looking at if you guys have each a different holiday, and as the world grows and it becomes more social, and you're like, oh, what do you do on this day? What do you do on this day? I mean, things are naturally going to mix together and kind of amalgamate anyway. And eventually you end up with exactly what we have today. I mean, no, like, what is the Yule's purpose in Christmas, even though it's in songs? That is a Scandinavian thing. You know, I
Yes.
mean, like, what do, St. Nicholas has infiltrated Scandinavian tradition even as St. Nicholas rather than what it originally may have been, which was, like an elf or an Odin type character.
Hey,
So,
when I lived in Germany as a kid, I put my shoes out for St. Nicholas.
Which is coincidental that it also falls at the same time as the Happy Honda days.
Yep.
Right. I mean, these are all things that
You're
just
killing
align.
me.
It's amazing how these things all align.
Yep. But I mean, RJ, you missed. We were going through the Yuletide tarot before you hopped on, and I had commented how Santa Claus looked very, very Northern European, and I'm like, people don't realize that Saint Nicholas was Greek, so he was very brown. He did not look like that. Okay, so Saint Nicholas of Myrna, he operated in Turkey and Asia Minor, but he was a Greek bishop.
And Jesus wasn't white. Like, so.
Shaka.
He probably looked like Saint
Right.
Nicholas. So, lots of similarities there. But yeah. So.
And one thing that was interesting too, research for the show about the history of Saint Nicholas and all the other predecessors, Father Christmas, etc. One thing that was really interesting was the iconography of the saint. That it became a pattern where when you make an icon in painting or carvings, that you want to have consistent symbolism inside of the artwork, so you can know from afar, even if it's really bad artwork, you can tell, oh, this is Saint so and so. And one common theme that stuck out with him, true or not, I don't know, was the fact that he was made to have a large forehead. Poor guy, and yet you'll still see to this day, Klingon or not, is he actually
Klingon?
Because he has the dark skin, he has the high forehead.
Yeah.
Is this proof that it was aliens? I don't know.
Furrowed brow to the max as well. I mean, that's not shopped, but I imagine the artist behind this was like, how can we show wisdom and thoughtfulness?
Indeed.
And they were like, oh, like you scowl, your brow or whatever.
It's the ultimate past master.
There you go.
The ultimate,
Yeah.
Squish it. You're too smooth. It's like you don't worry about anything. Look at that.
He has
Have
no
you seen-
furrowed
you
brow.
You can't. You got
So
that
surprising, right? You think
No
I'd be all
stress.
minky there by now? Yeah.
Latin stress-free European,
It's all
out on the
Botox.
beach in a Speedo thing.
But that's
For,
Saint Nicholas
for
though.
Nanya.
Though he was Greek, man. And he beached, he beached in Crete. He hung out, and in the summer times he wasn't.
He could have got a good
stored
tan.
away for the winter.
He's also a
I was
forge.
gonna say the sun is terrible for wrinkles.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely
Saint
got
Nicholas
more
is
beach time than me.
he's a forge master and necromancer as well. So that's cool.
Nice.
Rogue night elf.
The best TMR shows are when I can't tell when people are being serious and talking complete bullshit.
Oh no, I'm serious.
Here we go.
Yeah, he's right. He brings 3 kids back from the dead from the butcher.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. You get
Um,
that-
So,
A needle
Birthday
pulling thread.
but one thing that you brought up too, Jason, was interesting. Was why do Masons love Santa so much? Right? Some claim him to be a brother, right? I haven't seen a dude's card, so we can't prove it either way.
Nope.
But I still think it's a fascinating concept that we kind of have taken him under our wings and like claim credit for his good deeds. And so, why do you think there's that connection there between Freemasonry and Santa Claus?
Well, he's typically depicted as an obese Caucasian geriatric,
White male.
which hits the the demographic of American malecraft Freemasonry quite well.
Oh my god,
I can't tell if you're serious or not.
that was so funny.
That's funny. So that there's one reason.
I got nothing for that. That was perfect. That was so dead on and perfect. I love it.
So I will say, I think Masons like to, take on the persona of Santa Claus really about the generosity, right? Santa Claus really is here to do good and give good gifts to mankind. And I think, in our utopian idealist, sense, Freemasonry is very much, supposed to do the same.
Yeah, charity, right? Charity above all. Do good unto all. Have exemplify brotherly love.
Yeah.
Give, help out the community.
Yeah, as a natural, charitable works as a natural extension of agape and charity.
Oh, now you're just mixing terms.
Agape and charity
But you're not wrong. Yes.
Are the same.
Masonry loves
thing.
mixing things up. Nobody cares. Egregore, something,
Mix
something.
it up.
With a square and compass on it.
That's called
on.
symbolism.
I mean,
Symbolism.
right? Albert Pike is the modern allegory of Santa Claus. No, he just looks like him. My favorite is when Art de Hoyos always posts the Santa Claus amalgamated Albert Pike image. So thanks.
Oh yes, with the photoshopped hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Brilliant.
All right, so RJ, let's talk about this this little excerpt that you found to go deep into maybe possibly another interpretation of the esoteric meaning of Santa Claus. So I'm gonna let you set us up and we'll help you knock it down.
Sure.
I'm ready.
Many a year ago, a brother just so wild and crazy, brother Fratero actually was like, "Hey man, you ever read George W. Carey?" And I was like, "No man, like who's that?" He's like, "You got to check out a book." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So I found the only one that I could, which was called God Man, the Word Made Flesh. So this is a really interesting book, but like if you're not ready to go and get wild, then maybe don't pick this up.
Well, this goes up to 11 for sure.
I mean, it's like a cult anatomy of man, like style. Crazy.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Yeah, so the book itself is published by Dr. George W. Carey. First edition came out in 1920. The book is dedicated to, quote unquote, the God in thee, O woman, O man, for thou art God man. And the book is really sort of a 1920s rendition of what you could consider an esoteric New Age approach to Christian ideas, and probably not ideas that are always like on the surface that everybody knows about, but maybe like nuances, right? So things like the books rejected by the Council of Nicaea, marvelous story of Joseph and Mary, the explanation of turning water into wine. But if one gets all the way up to page 107, you get to a chapter called The Mystery of Santa Claus Revealed. And this is a wonderful sort of allegorical explanation. And I say that in the sense of whether it's true or not, he tends to take the symbol, all of what we know about Santa Claus, and he takes that and he throws it on top of exactly what Jason said. It's occult anatomy of man, We talk about the chimneys, the spinal cord, the cerebral spinal fluid. It talks about just
Pineal gland.
the pineal gland.
Yeah, the
it-
part of the skull at the pole where everything comes together.
Yeah, so like the little fontanella. Yeah, that's really macabre term too. They call it, so it's the fontanella, right? Because if you pierce that as a baby, it shoots blood out, and that's why it's called the little fountain. So
You have to find that out at least once.
it says there is a Santa Claus. It is a physiological fact, and it does secrete the most holy and wonderful gift or substance in the body of every individual. Those who understand it, who receive it in right spirit, have become as little children. So this is just an allusion, I think, really to something that's we'll use mainstream academia in quotes because I want people to think I'm crazy. You can't mention certain, like, you can't go against the certain medical established areas or academic established areas without looking to become a fool and getting your public funding pulled and all of that
Becoming
kind of
a
thing.
pariah in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
world of academia. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this was like, it's crazy. Like Dr. Rick Strausman dealt with this when he first started to do his work on dimethyltryptamine,
DMT.
and checking out the pineal gland. And right, to get into that area of study, he had to make several concessions and talk about, like, hey, I want to study the pineal gland because it also secretes melatonin, right? So he goes up and does a study up in up in Alaska where it's dark all the time because he wants to study what happens with melatonin. So he does all this stuff because he's got this curiosity, but it really is this idea that you can't study that stuff because it's like people are going to laugh at you, and of course the entire world is like, oh, you can't do Timothy Leary acid drugs, blah 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 stuff, even though psychologists were giving doses of LSD to the patients with positive results. So
Well, it's similar to the taboo that existed around near-death experiences up
exactly.
until the 1970s, right?
Yep, totally. Yeah, and so what's wild about that whole thing is we're looking at you're looking at something written in 1920 that is exploring those same ideals, and kind of talking about them in a poetic way, using this blanket of Christmas to explain sort of this childlike ecstasy one might feel in the wonders of Christmas.
But wasn't
RJ,
that
can we also talk about how you're getting called out in the comments for not having festive
now.
attire?
It's not too late.
I love my wife. Look at her red sweater and coffee.
Well,
She's right.
I was
I
gonna say,
didn't know there was one, Corey. Jeez.
oh, go bring it to him.
Yes, for those playing
good.
the audio game, RJ's lovely wife chimed in saying RJ knows that there's a Santa hat on the blanket ladder in the living room. RJ disputes
He's out.
this
He's going to get
assertion.
his hat.
Sweet.
But
He-
so while
he
he's
hit him.
gone, I was actually going to touch on
Better
something.
living through peer pressure and communal shame.
That's how you get things done, is peer pressure and shame.
Yes.
Literally how the world
Especially
moves
in masonry,
forward.
right?
Yes. But
You should really jump in the line.
you totally are making me forget things. Oh, I remember now. So when Robert was talking about the writings here, I mean, that was kind of the time for it, though. Same period as Hall, Wilmshurst. The early 1920s. The Theosophical movement. That's when all these people were.
It's very much an occult revival.
Yeah. It was probably the peak of it. Now
Look
he's
at a handsome guy. Look,
Yeah.
it is Santa Claus.
You're almost there, buddy. Almost there.
Almost. Oh, well, yeah, I'm not really, but
No, you
I
are.
am.
Yeah, you almost are. I'll never be confused with Santa Claus because I'm kind of dark.
You are confused with the historical
Saint
accuracy.
Nicholas.
Saint Nicholas.
St. Nicholas. Yeah, let me get that
The high forehead.
forehead. There you go.
Now you just need to scrunch it together.
Someone Photoshop some Klingon furls on me. I'll be good. Yeah, I look
Right.
old.
And
That's depressing.
oh,
I'm doing that again.
Okay,
No,
let's go.
no.
I just
try-
looked on
oh,
screen
oh.
cap. It's fine.
Okay. So one thing I found interesting about this excerpt that you shared with us is it's a leap. It's a logical leap. I'm not going to lie, but relating the name Claus to the claustrum part of the brain, back to the occult anatomy perspective, that got me going down this whole rabbit hole of what is the function of the claustrum in the brain.
But I will say this entire discourse strikes me as like the folks who try to do like gematria with different like transliterations or English spellings of words.
Yeah.
It's goofy.
So it's
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
okay.
we were
maybe.
talking about this before the show. I liked
It's a
the
leap.
book. I think I got the book. I probably got the book when you and Fratero were talking about it the very first time years and years ago. But some of the stuff in there is just a stretch. And, we're talking about things spaced apart by millennia and language. And it's cool, but yeah.
Well, this is also like the era of expansion and I'll call it proliferation, but in a way that is like broken apart and moving across of Theosophy, right? Which is this whole
True.
big thing that was trying to connect all the things that you could ever think of to find a universal truth in the hopes that you could come to some sort of utopian ideology of deity and all of the things. And so obviously, this guy is probably inspired by guys like George Arundel or, any of those people, but it's just in vogue and it's
You missed
amazing.
my allusion to Max Heindel.
Oh, did I? Yeah. Max is right up there as
He's
well
your
as
guy.
it's like he's the unauthorized what do you call it? He's like the unauthorized disciple of Rudolf Steiner in America. He basically just like
Nice.
repackages Steiner's stuff and
The
tells
web
it
to your
work.
Preston.
Yeah, but probably worse. Like he meant well, but he definitely copied.
Screw
All right,
you,
so-
copyright laws.
So what's a claustrum? Okay, let's talk about the claustrum part of the brain. So it was, whether there's a link or not, which I would tend to agree with the rest of the hosts, this is a stretch, but let's run with it. Like, let's pick up this ball and run with it for what it's worth.
Stumble with it.
Claustrum, that claustrum is, the word means like a barrier or a covered place or a hidden place, a place of seclusion. And its function in the brain is actually a thin veil, a thin wall between different sections of the brain. And so, one thing I found
It's also important to note, this is claustrum, not colostrum.
Yeah.
Just it sounds similar, but we are not talking about breast milk.
Yes. Yet.
That's correct.
So the claustrum, its function is actually, and this is a blend between actual science and this text. It is actually a conduit, right, between different modalities of the brain, between different functions of the brain, between your different hemispheres. So it acts not only as a wall, but also as, for my electrical engineers, as like a bus, like a serial bus that actually everything plugs into, so that they can talk to each other. And we know this is true because if you actually look at the clinical significance of the claustrum, they found that by hooking up electrodes to it and trying to shock it and trying to see how it reacts, they found that patients went in and out of consciousness by basically turning this switch on and off. Now,
Patient.
Well, there have been
patients.
No plural. I mean, your mouse was literally on a single case study. I'm like, no, it's one.
Well, no, because they've tried to replicate it a couple times.
I stand corrected then.
You do stand corrected.
It's also been used in lobotomy surgeries, where you actually split the two halves of the brain through the claustrum, to again help treat things like schizophrenia and epileptic seizures.
Yeah. So What's really fascinating about this is while they couldn't necessarily call it a switch for consciousness, like people just didn't like check out because they wouldn't have remembered or anything what they actually did when they were in that off state. But what they can say is that it definitely is a switch to a down state, or a better way of saying it is a switch between awakenedness and being a quote unquote asleep.
Yeah. What's interesting, it was really anybody out there can look this up. I mean, it's pretty fascinating stuff. People who like suffered from atonic seizures and those kinds of things. This is where you kind of alluded. They used to cut through the corpus. That's called a corpus callosotomy. And basically they open up your brain and they cut right down the middle and separate the halves. And this basically stops the electrical signals from jumping and causing seizures. They found out, they're like, oh, well, why don't you just do this for everybody who's got this thing? Well, the reason they don't is because one side of your brain, let's just say, is like colors. The other side is like objects. And if you put something down the middle and you show them an object and have them close one eye, they can't tell you what color something is. Or if you close the other eye, they can't tell you what the object is. But if they open both eyes, bam, it's there. So, this is just, it's such a real, like you called it, a serial bus. And
Right.
Like, that's like a perfect electrical
Yeah.
engineer term for this.
Which is really fascinating because as George Carey goes into in further detail, he also alludes to the claustrum as containing a yellow substance as the priceless oil.
The oil.
Right, that flows down.
The Christos.
Joe?
The Christos?
The Christos, the anointed one? Exactly. So
Scary.
there is no oil-like substance necessarily in the medical claustrum. However, let's run with that metaphor for a second. If the claustrum acts as a conduit, as an enterprise serial bus, for example, then it's going to flow down all these functions down to the rest of the body. And George Carey says that this oil becomes now a metaphor for being anointed, like, how you're anointed on your head and it carries down to your body.
Even on your beard.
Yes, even Aaron's beard, surprisingly.
Roots of your garments.
Yeah. And
It gets on to the dew of her.
What kind of anointing was going on back then, man? It's like
a lot. There was a lot of
the best anointing. It's the oil of joy.
Yep. Yellow showers
and gladness.
So you think about that, right? Like cerebral spinal fluid.
Yeah.
This is the stuff,
right,
that like carries everything. All of your all of the various molecules of the your melatonin, the dimethyltryptamine, your oxytocin, all of those things get just like flooded from that spot. And so it's interesting that he calls attention to it like as this yellow oil.
Well, it's also a protectant and a lubricant.
Yeah.
As well, being oil, it keeps your brain from rattling around in your skull. It keeps your neurons from being impinged.
Mm-hmm.
And Carey even references like the pineal gland, right? The opening up of that third eye, the whole like Kundalini practice to become that fire,
the
right?
lantern,
that spark, the lantern of the body. So here's my culmination of all of that, right? He doesn't explicitly call this out at the end, but here's how I put this all together. That tying it all the way back to Santa Claus, that in the exoteric, the outside of the body, that Santa, as the claustrum, is the conduit to the light of the world. Right, relating all the way back to Christos, the anointed one. And
Christ,
so
the light of the world, emblematical of the sun god, relating back to sun worship.
And so who carries on the archetype of Christ every December 25th? Right? You could argue that Santa is that conduit.
I think that your logic here is sound considering where we're looking for this. I mean, George is, it's not like Plumer or like some of these other guys who take a very wide gamut of world mythologies and religions to come up with things that are similar. George is really focused on things of a Christian, a Western Christian kind of understanding of things, almost like, and I don't mean this in any deprecating way or whatever, but almost like he's trying to inform the types of people in society who would be benefactors of, you know, Theosophy or what have you, like a teacher to people who are on the up and up and maybe uh, I just don't know. Like I see this guy at a party in The Great Gatsby. You know what I mean? Um, but like, yeah, I mean, I think your logical. I don't want to say a leap because it's not a leap. Your steps through this are spot on, John.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, to your point, I think the whole book is kind of like that. To your point, RJ, right? Because I mean, even in the title, I mean, that is just dripping with Christian symbolism right there. The Word made flesh. I mean, we could do a week's worth of shows on that, right? And that interpretation and how that steps outside of dogma and just gets into all these other realms of cool stuff to write books on. So
there's one take. I like it. I'm digging it. Anything else on this text here? George Carey's text.
Well, I think he also tries to make a bit of a connection between the Greek characters of Christ, you know, the chi, the rho, and the iota, and Christ itself meaning oil in Greek. Joe is making the I pooped face.
We all don't have a doctorate in religious
Sorry, I
biblical
didn't
terminology.
you don't
study.
have to. It
Doctorate
doesn't mean
in
that.
That's why we got
Biblical
a
Greek.
Joe.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that. Okay. I don't
No.
make my chicken cutlets with Christos, extra virgin Christos. Okay.
But you do use
What about
Crisco.
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 Yeah, my belly is full of Crisco right now. So
Well, and that's
Illuminati
getting
confirmed.
back to my point about, you know, trying to push American or English words and terminologies into like a geometria type of.
and that's kind of the
Type
sense
of
I got
stuff.
when he
Just-
started
yeah.
yeah, to your point, Jason, that's where my head was going when he started to talk about the I think unfortunately that's a leap. You know, when we're talking about Christos,
100%.
that meant anointed, right? But you know, when you start talking about oil itself and things like that, then we're getting into words that don't mean the same thing and don't even touch each other grammatically across the centuries. You know,
You
from
mean words matter?
they do. They do. So yeah, that one kind of cheesed me a little bit, but yeah, I'll have some extra virgin Christos tomorrow, with my French fries. So
You ever have like use some of that extra awesome coconut Christos? So good.
I like the OGs, man. The olive.
Yeah, me too.
Hey, Jason, what about the sun god?
Oh man, I thought you'd never ask. So, I mean, we have touched on this quite a bit already in the episode, but there are a lot of parallels across mythologies on the celebration of the birth of sun gods. Many of these stories actually share common elements with the story of Jesus, you know, and his birth. So ultimately, when we look at, you know, midwinter and the solstice marking the birth of a new solar cycle, this ties in very closely with solar worship and sun worship, and the victory over the darkness. You know, that is the birth of, you know, the new sun or as as it was known in Rome, the birthday of the unconquered sun.
Yeah, it's important to, I think, also call out that as we talk about this, I don't want people to think that we're advocating for any sort of um, Christian stole Christmas kind of thing.
No,
not
I
at all.
think I think when we're talking about this, it's important to say, like, yeah, this stuff comes together naturally. People, like, there are amalgamations of ideas. Sometimes people celebrate two birthdays on the same day. Just because there are amazing stories of virgin births across every mythology doesn't mean that one is stealing from the other. It's a common sort of human thought process. It's all of those things.
No, but I mean, to your point, it wasn't. We have a very modern sensibility when it comes to this,
Yeah.
right? And we have to remember, warts and all. Let's talk about the Roman Empire. We can talk about many others, but let's talk about the Roman Empire specifically. When they stole an idea or they let people do things that they did in their local land, even after they were conquered, there wasn't this idea of like, oh, well, you're stealing my culture and that kind of thing. That's the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire at the time operated in a way, well, hey, if there's a really good thing going and it's good for you people, and there's things that we can incorporate too, we're going to do it. And everybody was okay with it. It wasn't like a shock thing. And
Yeah,
oh
just
my
pay the
God, what
tax,
is that?
baby
I don't
boy.
want. Yeah, it was a way to let the people in a conquered land, unfortunately, right? Because that's what they did. They ran out and conquered. Let them keep some sort of their own self-same traditions and ideas and things, and gave them some sort of identity. But for many, many people in the Western world at the time, that sense of identity being brought into the greater Roman Empire was seen as a point of pride, right? And not so much a thing like, well, they stole my identity and they're wearing, my thing or doing my thing. It wasn't looked at in a negative way for a lot of people. For some, it sucked, but for many, it didn't. But again, we have this modern idea that's like, oh, they took things and stole them. It wasn't looked at like that.
Well, and I think it's also important to note that, like, what we're really talking about here are foundational human archetypes, right? The archetype of a new birth and the comfort that we as humans feel with the light and the salvation and trying to bring in a closeness to God. Like, how can you get closer to the divine if the divine comes down and inhabits a physical form? And so, I think one thing that Nunya has asked in the chat is, could it be because we have the same designer? I have advocated on this show, a number of times that, the soul or there is a shard of divinity in us, whether it be the Holy Spirit or the soul, whatever have you, the spark. And, maybe that spark imbues all of mankind um, with a kind of predilection for certain, like, thematic archetypes, which is why you see so many commonalities across mythologies and religions and cultures. Um, and so it's not necessarily that someone stole something or not. It's okay if the narrative adapts and changes to better meet the needs of the culture it's serving.
Because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
That is not what I said.
All right.
I love it.
Jesus said that, didn't he?
I have
All right.
been and always will be
Your friend.
Your bra.
All right. Let's wrap things up. We are not going to meet next week, so we will see you next year. But let's start taking it home on our Esoteric Christmas episode. Jason, take us home.
This was fun. This was a super fun episode. I had an absolute blast researching for the show and also talking with all these fine gentlemen here and the great folks on the chat. I think it's very important when you look at, especially like religious ceremonies, it's important to broaden your research in your mind to other areas where other people of different spiritual backgrounds or faith systems or cultures may be doing something similar but in a different way, and it's very important not to see that as competition, but perhaps as, an expression of, some of the universal foundational truths inherent in mankind. I think that's where we've kind of brought this in for this episode. We've done Christmas episodes before, where we focused more on the non-Christian aspects, and so I was excited to be able to delve really into some of the Christos mythology, and more of the overtly syncretic aspects of Christmas. In this episode. So this was a ton of fun. I hope everybody had as much fun as we did.
Woo. Over to you, Joe.
Ooh, awesome. It is 10:27 on the East Coast. So I want to wish everybody a very, very happy winter solstice.
Oh, now you can say it.
Yeah, I can because it's 10:27. Yeah. So happy winter solstice, everybody. I wish you a year of rebirth and renewal and blessings and love for everybody around you. So ignore that 5 of cups. Just turn around.
Don't
and
focus on the
cherish
3
good stuff.
broken cups.
That's
yeah,
right.
Jason.
No, this was a fun show. I want to echo everything that Jason said. And I think this was a good example of how we can get together and talk about things that speak to an underlying truth, right? And we talk about similarities and we talk about syncretism, but I think one of the reasons why we all come together is that we feel and we know that there is some sort of underlying and truth and purpose to everything, and it's fun to unpack that, and I get to do that with some of the coolest people in the world. So I want to wish y'all
Yourself
very happy
excluded.
holidays,
Yep.
Merry Christmas, and you can jump in a dumpster. And,
As you wish.
As you wish. Okay, as you wish for 2024. We will say that more and less mean crap to Jason.
Please.
Okay. Yeah, good thing in January we're gonna do our resolutions. So start thinking about it now, Joe.
Everybody's gonna be resolved.
It won't be that.
Nicer to
Okay?
Jason
It
Richards.
will not be that.
be that. All right, RJ.
I just feel like I was going to say the idea of Christmas is important. I think that's a solid statement for anybody who celebrates Christmas, of course. But maybe I rather would say that what the world considers at this time of the year, this sort of celebration, all with a historical and contextual basis and what we kind of alluded to and jumped around here in solar symbolism and things. These mythologies that kind of get born from all of that. Regardless of all of that, the surface kind of lesson and where we're all sort of in the same pool is this special time of year that's special because the world considers this time of the year, whether it's Hanukkah, Diwali, or Christmas, whatever it is, right? We have this global consideration for being kinder, for goodness, and of gratitude, of community. And I think what so many poets and movies have talked about, and books, goodwill toward all. And I think it almost is like a cosmic consciousness reset for everybody. It's a reminder to say, hey, remember that all of this stuff matters and people matter and yada, 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 right? Like, we might have a crappy year. We might be one of those people who eats, breathes, sleeps, work. And you're the guy on like conference calls, maybe you're the dad of Jamie trying to get the Turbo Man, but your son is your number one customer. You're mixing.
Go to Amazon.
Yeah. You're mixing business with regular life. You're doing all this stuff, and then here comes this time of year when it's, for a lot of folks, absolutely miserable outside. And we're called to be closer to people and to be good and to think about others and make or buy gifts and send them or take them, give them, all those things. It's just magical, you know? And I think this episode was really fun because we got to unpack some of the additional mystical kind of ideas around what could connect a lot of these things in a esoteric way to our spiritual practices. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. I love Christmas time. It was never my favorite holiday until my wife,
She overcompensated for you.
you know, her birthday's the day before Halloween. I've always been a Halloween guy. I love Halloween. And yeah, she is a Christmas queen, so she loves Christmas and all that stuff. And I know you guys are the same way. Like, our wives are all pretty similar with that stuff. And I don't know. I guess it just brings out the best in us. So,
Right.
fun times.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah. So I get to play Joe and say what RJ said, because it's exactly right. It's that time of year. I always go introspective like this time of year because I always think about the end of the year, where we're going, celebrate the darkness, right? In order to look forward to the light. Five of Cups was again actually a more appropriate card than we initially thought, because that's what it's all about, right? We are in a dark state at the darkest time of the year, and yet we have new plans going forward. And this was fun, thinking about, what does this all mean? Like, why do we have this distinct nature in ourselves across cultures, across time, across the continents, that we all stop to celebrate, stop to reflect, stop to be in community with each other? And that's what this is all about. So there's lots of things that we could go deeper on, but we hope we've given you a little taste of something to think about as you proceed with your holiday tradition. And so for that, we'll definitely see you next year. We're going to take off next week, but we'll see you after the new year with some New Year's resolutions, hopefully. And we want to thank you all very much for watching. Keep searching for more light. That's
Wow.
what Joe said.
For more light. Keep searching for more light.